Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be looking at the economic situation in Niger State, Nigeria.
Okay.
We've got this really interesting article from Daily Trust, and the title is kind of wild. It's called Hardship. We eat tafasa, use charcoal as toothpaste Niger residents.
Charcoal toothpaste.
Yeah, so we're going to dive into that, see what's going on.
I think that's what really grabs you about this article, right? It just gives you a glimpse into the lives of everyday people in Niger State and, how they're dealing with all of these economic changes. We see the hardship, but also this incredible resilience.
Definitely. It
I do
feels
that.
very firsthand.
Yeah.
And they point to a couple of specific policies. I mean, I'm sure a lot of our listeners have heard about this, but the removal of fuel subsidies and the devaluation of the Naira. I mean, how is that actually playing out on the ground?
Yeah, well, it's really impacting the cost of everything, right? So, even basic staples like Semovita, a 10-pack bag, now costs N 18,000.
Wow.
It's a lot. Even spaghetti has become like a luxury item. And cooking oil prices have just gone through the roof. So, people are really having to make tough decisions about how they're going to feed their families.
Yeah, and speaking of feeding families, it was interesting to see what people are actually doing. How are they adapting to this?
Right. Well, the article talks about how people are turning to different kinds of foods.
Okay.
They're relying more on things like yams and potatoes. Those are very filling and sort of, they can last a little bit longer. Gari, which is that cassava-based food, is also becoming much more popular.
Okay.
And then you have tafasa, which is this wild plant they're boiling
Wow.
and often eating that with just kuli, that peanut snack.
That's pretty incredible the lengths people are going to. Even the charcoal toothpaste. I mean, that's just what's going on there.
Yeah, charcoal has been used for oral hygiene in some cultures, for quite a while. But, there are definitely some questions about potential long-term health effects. But it shows you just how resourceful people are having to be. It's about using what's available and affordable.
Right, yeah. Absolutely. And it makes you think about not just the physical health, but, the article talked about, increased pressure, trauma, even deaths of heads of families.
Yeah.
I mean, the emotional impact must be pretty profound.
The psychological impact of just that financial strain is often overlooked. But imagine, like a constant worry of how you're going to feed your children. It's a huge burden.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not just families who are affected, right?
Right.
The article goes into talking about farmers in Niger State as well.
Right. Farmers are really in a bind because you've got the rising costs of things like fertilizers, seeds, all those inputs for farming.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, they're dealing with price controls on the produce that they're selling.
Oh, wow.
It's hard.
So they're kind of caught in the middle there.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. They mentioned this one farmer who had invested in solar panels
Oh, yeah.
to irrigate his rice farm because of the drought.
Right.
Another farmer spent a ton of money on fertilizer
Yeah.
and ended up with like 12 bags of maize.
Right.
I mean, it's heartbreaking.
It is. It is. And I think it highlights how, sometimes these policies that are meant to help consumers can have, unintended consequences.
Yeah.
If farmers aren't able to make a profit, they're going to stop producing, and then that could lead to even more shortages down the road.
So it's really about, those knock-on effects.
Yeah.
And we've got the families, struggling to get food on the table. We've got the farmers struggling to make ends meet. It paints a pretty bleak picture.
Mm.
What is the government doing? I mean, is there any response to this?
Well, they did mention that the Niger state government has set up a price control board
Okay.
to try and stabilize the costs of these goods.
Right. But, I mean, is that enough? Is that really going to get to the root of this, economic crisis?
That's the question, right? Price controls, they can be a temporary fix, but they don't really solve the underlying issues. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg. It might help with the pain a little bit,
Right.
but it's not actually going to fix the problem.
So what are some of those deeper issues then?
Well, this situation in Niger State, it's really kind of a microcosm of what's happening in Nigeria more broadly.
Okay.
You have decades of corruption, this over-reliance on oil revenue.
Right.
Lack of investment in infrastructure. All of these things have kind of contributed to the situation we're seeing now.
So it's not just about these recent policy changes.
Right, exactly.
It's kind of a buildup.
It's a culmination of factors.
Right.
And of course, you have global factors too, like the war in Ukraine,
Right.
which has disrupted supply chains and really pushed prices up around the world. So it's complex. It's a mix of both internal and external pressures.
And it seems like it's, everyday people who are bearing the brunt of this.
Absolutely. They're the ones having to make those really difficult choices. Sacrificing basic needs, having to come up with these creative solutions just to get by. It really humanizes this issue of economic hardship.
It really does.
Yeah.
And shows you how these, global events, these policies, how they actually filter down and affect people in a very real way.
Exactly. It's not just numbers on a spreadsheet.
Right.
This is impacting real people's lives in a very tangible way.
It really underscores that need for, good economic policies, job creation.
Absolutely.
Some kind of safety net for people.
Right. Policies that empower people, not just offer those kind of Band-Aid solutions.
Right. Yeah. Create a system that, people can actually thrive in, not just survive.
Exactly.
And I think that's an important point.
Yeah.
This article focused on Niger State,
Right.
but it's not an isolated incident.
Not at all. And I think that's one of the key takeaways here. These challenges are being felt in so many communities across Nigeria and really globally.
Right.
What we're seeing in Niger State is just kind of a glimpse into a much wider issue.
So what are some key takeaways then for our listener from this deep dive?
No, I think first and foremost, it's really important to understand that economic policies, these aren't abstract concepts, right?
Right.
These have very real world consequences that are directly impacting people's lives. The experiences of these people in Niger State are a perfect example of that.
And we see the resilience,
Oh,
the
absolutely.
ingenuity of the human spirit. I mean, even in the face of this, pretty incredible adversity, people are figuring out ways to cope, adapt, and support each other.
Right. And I think that's really inspiring in a way, too. It shows you that even in the toughest of circumstances, there's this inherent human capacity to innovate, to adapt, to find solutions.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
And that last takeaway.
Well, I think this really emphasizes just how interconnected things are, right? Local and global economic forces. The situation in Niger State, while unique in some ways, also reflects these broader trends that we're seeing around the world.
Right, yeah.
And staying informed about these complex dynamics, I think, is crucial for all of us.
It can feel overwhelming sometimes.
It can.
The scale of these problems.
Yeah.
But as you said, staying informed is that first step, right?
It is. It is.
As understand the issues, have conversations about them, and hopefully advocate for change.
It really does. As we're wrapping this up, I keep thinking about that charcoal toothpaste.
Yeah.
It's just such a powerful image
Right.
of just, making do.
Right.
But it's also like, wow, this is, these are the choices people are having to make.
Yeah, yeah.
It makes you wonder, could we see this happening in other places? Could we see these same challenges popping up, in other parts of the world?
It's definitely a possibility. The factors that contribute to economic hardship, things like, inflation, political instability,
Right.
resource scarcity.
Yeah.
Those aren't unique to Nigeria.
Right.
We've seen these patterns emerge in various countries throughout history, really. So what can we learn then from the people in Niger State? What can we take away from their struggles and their resilience?
Well, I think it really highlights the need for, good economic policies.
Okay.
Proactive ones that are sustainable.
Right.
Addressing things like income inequality,
Yeah.
access to education, making sure that economies are diversified. It's about creating systems that are resilient
Okay.
and can actually, withstand these shocks, whether they're internal or external.
So it's not just about, reacting when a crisis hits. It's about building that foundation to kind of weather the storm.
Exactly. And it's about empowering individuals, empowering communities to actually be, active participants in their own economic destiny.
Okay.
Fostering entrepreneurship, fostering innovation, supporting each other. I think those things can make a real difference.
So it's a kind of a multifaceted approach.
Yeah.
It's top down and it's also grassroots. It's about a system that works for everyone, not just a select few.
Right, exactly.
And I think the people of Niger State have shown just incredible resilience,
They have
resourcefulness
Yeah.
in the face of this, real adversity. And it's a testament to, I think, the human spirit to adapt and to find solutions,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
even in the most challenging circumstances. It's a powerful reminder that, even when things are tough, there's hope. And there's always something we can learn from the experiences of others. And as we've seen in this deep dive, those lessons can be applied not just to Niger State, but in communities all around the world facing these similar challenges. Well, that wraps up our deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those tough questions.